cold start? How do you want to do it?
We did the cold start. We've opened. It's recording.
Okay, now it's recording.
Yeah, I just pick the funniest bit when I'm editing to when to the intro fades out and when we fade on.
Okay, so now do you want to do the introduction to the podcast, or should I just go straight to the point that I wanted to ask you before?
Well, it's up to you. You said you were taking charge this time. You said it was your turn.
No, it was my turn to embarrass you. But do you want to do like the introduction?
I'll do the introduction.
Yes.
Where are we? We're in Beijing. And this is the 4th episode of our recap of the entire history of China. So we did one episode on the pre-Qin dynasty. Well, you mostly did that. I was just sitting here nodding along.
Mostly, yes.
Then we did Qin Shi Huang until the...
Which you did mostly.
Yeah. Qin Shi Huang until the 1911, the Xinhai Revolution, right? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah. Until the end of the Qing dynasty. And then last week we wanted to do 1911 until now. And then what happened was we recorded an hour of 1911 until 1949, and then we lost that recording because a delivery guy kept phoning me, and he kept phoning me for 2 days straight until I picked up. I was wondering why he just didn't leave.
Did you really find out what was the delivery in the end?
The delivery was, I think it was a Christmas present for my girlfriend. That was it.
Okay,
or something equally stupid. It wasn't anything important.
Yeah, okay, what's the topical anyway?
He really wanted me to sign for it. So that was why we lost an hour of recording and came back with a much different energy after some very tasty gourba roll.
But it was a good chapter. I mean, we went through the points.
Yeah, then we recorded an hour. We did the hour again. And then we were like, well, we could just do like 2 more hours. We can do up until 49.50, and then we can do 50 until now. So today... Please God, we're going to finish Chinese history. We're going to go from 1950, 1949 until nearly
Present
today.
Yeah.
Nearly today.
Mostly
We got so much shit to talk about. But before then, you have an important question to ask me.
Okay, so in the last 2 chapters, essentially, we have been talking about how the Central powers, the Central European powers, have been harassing and humiliating China at every turn in history. For a really long time.
The 7 Nation Army couldn't hold me back. Yeah?
I'm gonna play it like you never did that. Okay. So, I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
Would you rather, from now on, as a British person...
As a British person.
Every time you interact with a guy, with a Chinese guy, with a Chinese person, apologize for your wrongdoings in the century of humiliation.
Yeah.
Or every time you interact with a woman of any country, you have to start a conversation by telling them you're not a threat.
Well, actually, I was gonna before I get put any hypothetical, I always weigh up whether answering the question is going to fuck me over more than not answering the question. This isn't a hard hypothetical, actually. Like when I talk to people and say I'm British, they give me if they're an old guy, they already give me that.
Exactly, that's why
I mean, both of them would be embarrassing, but I think both of them I could play off. So apologizing for the center of humiliation, I can always play that off by being overly woke. I can get on my hands and knees and kowtow to them and be like, I'm so sorry for what we did to your country.
Yeah, but you interact with many Chinese people here every day.
I think it would probably harm my professional life. I think I couldn't do that. The woman one is much funnier. I can do that to every woman. I can say, I'm not a threat. I'm not a danger.
That includes your girlfriend. Like every time you talk with her, like, honey, I'm not a threat.
Honey, I'm one of the good ones.
Yeah.
No, I could do that. I definitely pick the woman one. One, because, you know, the misogynistic society we live in, men hold all the positions of power. So actually I'd get away with...
Wait. You were saying like right now before like not being too woke.
That's woke.
That's super woke.
Yeah, exactly, but it's true. So I could get away for the rest of my life without ever speaking to a woman apart from my girlfriend. Which isn't woke.
I don't think you could. Like I'm talking like you go to buy the groceries and the woman is just like checking in. And
I don't talk to
before you pay to her. You have to say hey.
I very rarely talk to people when I'm doing the groceries here.
You have to say hi.
I tell you what, when I go to a bar and the bartender's a woman, that would cause me problems.
Yes, because you have to do it in a bar. That's
because they would probably
environment.
assume I'm drunk and immediately cut me off. Sorry, sir, you've had too much. You need to leave. But
I just arrived.
I just arrived. I'm not a threat. I just told you. No, that one's way less embarrassing than trying to explain the center of humiliation every single time I speak to a man. I mean, you've gendered it. You've made it kind of weird by gendering it like that, but it doesn't seem like a hard choice for me.
Well, one of the parts was gender, and the other one was like was a racial division. I mean,
The I'm not a threat is less racial. Like
it's not racial at all. It's only based about
yeah. I think the center of humiliation immediately brings up, "Hey, I'm a white guy," and that's turning the conversation somewhere that I normally like to avoid as much as possible.
But I think that's pretty obvious by now. I mean, you have blue eyes, blonde hair, you're white.
People usually notice that about me when they see me that I'm white, but they don't bring it up in conversation. They don't immediately change the topic to that, which is what I would be doing if I brought up the center of humiliation.
They don't bring it up, but it's already lurking inside their minds. They already know, like, hey, this is a...
You're giving me the choice of every time I speak to someone, basically either bringing up my race or my gender.
No, not everyone. I'm only talking about Chinese people.
You said the woman thing, you said anyone.
No, the woman thing is like anyone.
Yeah.
But with the Chinese center of humiliation, it's just with Chinese people.
Yeah, but when I'm in China, I generally talk to Chinese people. So both of them would effectively be the same.
I don't know. I think
it's just one is weighing up how many men I speak to and how many women I speak to, and which one I could just get away with not speaking to as much as possible. And that would be, I can speak to a lot of men and avoid speaking to women, which isn't very woke. But if you're putting me in the situation, that's what I have to choose.
Okay.
The other one is, if I speak to anyone, would I prefer to bring up the century of humiliation, or would I prefer to bring up like rape culture and like, you know what? I was women's officer for half a year. I'm pretty comfortable with bringing up like uncomfortable topics for men.
I think I'm pretty sure I'm talking with the most feminist person I've ever met.
Professionally qualified to talk about the gender division between men and women in every conversation.
Can you explain to me what is feminism, please, from the perspective of a man?
From my perspective, first off, I'm not in a position to talk about. Feminism is, we want to tackle the inequality between genders and how they're perceived. It's about tackling the gender roles that are like established on men and women. Okay,
so your final answer is
feminism is giving women the right to vote. Okay. But I don't think they should be allowed to ride bicycles.
Ooh, now you lost walk points.
That's my centrist 19th century feminist
They
position.
can vote, but they cannot ride a bicycle.
I think women's suffrage is good, but I don't think they should ride bicycles.
Should they drive a car?
Hold on. Cars haven't been invented yet.
No, now. Should they drive a car?
Of course they should.
Okay.
The misogynist objection to women riding bicycles is because they're getting sexual pleasure from the seat. That's why. Okay. That's why Victorians didn't like women riding.
Okay, so it's not rather coming from a sexist point of view. It's just because you're raised.
The whole point is not coming at all.
Yeah. Okay. That I can understand that.
No one gets sexual pleasure from voting.
We are talking here about in a podcast talking about not pleasuring women. Now
you shouldn't be pleasuring anyone on a podcast.
I really feel like Ben Shapiro.
Unless you're Howard Stern.
You're taking it to the sexual way really quickly.
No. I'm setting the boundary. Howard Stern is about as horny as we're getting.
I'm just saying, like, this looks really like something like Ben Shapiro.
Have I answered your uncomfortable question? And I've gone on enough of a tangent about the role of women in society, and I've gone on a tangent about Howard Stern, and I've gone on a tangent about bicycles.
No, you did.
Have we cold started enough, or you want to keep going before we talk about
the
China?
thing with the bicycles? I think you went pretty straight ahead to the point.
I was just making fun of like centrist feminism,
making fun. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. The bicycle thing, I was dead serious about. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah, I can understand.
Well, Dana can't ride my fixed gear bicycle, but that's not because of the sexual pleasure. That's because the bike is too tall. Also, I'm going to bleep out the name.
I mean, that's also a good reason. Okay, now it's snowing in Harlem.
Oh, shit.
Okay. Yeah, now.
It's snowing.
Yeah, okay. So it was supposed to be today, like the first snow of the season.
But that means I have to get a bicycle later. I have to go to the park later. Yeah, I didn't want to go out.
Me too. I have to get a bike later. Oh, fuck.
I
got to get the bike later. Oh, no, I didn't want it to snow. Okay, anyway. Problem for the 2 hours later, me. Okay. Let's get back on track after you already made clear, like, you don't want to be a threat woman, and you
I'm not a threat to women. It's not that I don't want to be.
Well, you are not because you don't want to be, I guess. I guess they kind of overlap.
I'm incapable of being a threat to women.
Can you imagine, like, I want to.
It's just so difficult.
Yeah. Why they feel so comfortable about me?
I'm checking the recording, and when we come back, you're going to be talking about China, okay?
Okay. So last time I think we just dropped it off around 1949 with the founding of the People's Republic of China, after which marks the end of the Civil War.
Yeah, the declaration on Tiananmen Square, the People's Liberation Army roll in. They look sick. Everyone's clapping. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff that happens that year, but they don't take the southwest of China until later. And then after liberating Beijing, they liberate Nanjing, and that's when the KMT run away. I haven't got the KMT much in my notes actually, but like
I have nothing to say about the KMT right now, apart from trying to kill Zhou Enlai, which I will discuss later. But yeah, so the KMT flees away to Taiwan, which was restored to China, by the way, when the
are we going there already? We're 10 minutes in and you're going there.
No, Japan's. I was going back. Actually.
Okay, right.
After Japan's defeat, it was the island of Taiwan. It was restored to China.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, in the first Sino-Japanese War, part of the treaty that they signed implied that Taiwan was going to be it was going to belong to Japan.
Yeah.
Now it's restored. Now the KMT moves there together with also part of the Ma clique.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Ma clique, they were the main support in the army for the Kuomintang during the Civil War.
Yeah,
big supporters of Chiang Kai-shek in the political aspect too. Just because I mentioned it many times, not because of any ideological aspect, any other than just opposing communism.
Yeah,
or anything that they perceive as left wing. So yeah, essentially they moved there, they established the government of the Republic of China.
Yeah.
And until many years later, this is going to be the internationally recognized as the official government of China.
Yeah, until the 70s.
71.
The Republic of China is recognized as the only legitimate government of China.
Exactly, until the 71.
Which is quite funny. In perspective, it's very funny.
Yeah, I mean, when the People's Republic of China gets back their seat into the United Nations, that means Taiwan, the island of Taiwan. They get kicked out. Yeah, they take them out. They still have no seat in the United Nations.
Which is a shame.
I mean, they have a seat. They have the Republic of China, the People's Republic of China. Yeah. But the thing is, like, the official media in China, they talk about the restoration of our seat.
Oh yeah.
It was always ours. They just acknowledge it in the 71, which is not a stretch to call it that way, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that, as you mentioned, the People's Republic of China doesn't mean like the end of the problems. They still have to deal with the warlord problems.
They have to pick a flag. They took a while to pick a flag.
Yeah.
That was like a year later that they fucking settled on the 5-star flag.
The first problem that they find actually is choosing the capital. Do you hear the fuss about it?
That could be a problem too. No, I didn't hear about that.
Okay, so during the Civil War,
they should have made it Shenzhen.
They should have. Shenzhen is very important for the future. I think they consider Shenzhen too, but during the Civil War and the Japanese invasion, the capital moves from Nanjing to Chongqing, which is also heavily bombed by the Japanese army.
Flattened.
Yeah, essentially not flattened, but really,
Chongqing was flattened.
It was destroyed pretty heavily.
Yeah.
They're talking about death toll in the hundreds of thousands. And if you go to Chongqing, you have many bunkers that have been restored as bars or restaurants or social centers or any other kind of establishment.
Yeah.
Which is like still a quite common see to find.
Mm.
And the thing is, like, when the People's Republic of China is founded, they consider first keep the capital in Chongqing. Because it's pretty center in the country, you have a port, and then they also find out like, well, having a port can be a disadvantage because this makes a naval invasion way easier. Then they also consider Nanjing because it has been one of the historical capitals in different periods of China, and they also disregard it for various reasons. And they end up settling with Beijing because they think, well, we are not open to the sea. That takes away one route of invasion. And we are quite close to the Soviet Union, which at the time were allies.
They were more than allies. I mean, they were basically running parts of the government for them.
Yeah, essentially, yes. And they regret this decision like a few years after.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the main reason why Beijing is the capital now is because it was a pretty developed city and for the standards of the age, and also because it was quite close to the Soviet Union.
Yeah, but bad weather though.
Bad weather. Horrible weather.
I would have put more weight on choosing the city with good weather.
Which one would you have chosen based on that criteria?
If I was going to choose the city based on the best weather in China for running a capital city, I think it would be Chengdu. No, people here often say that Chengdu has the best weather in China because it's the most consistent. It's like a solid 20 degrees year round.
Chengdu.
Yeah,
but in
it's
summer, it's an oven.
Yeah, but most places in China are ovens.
Really
in summer.
humid.
Even Beijing is hot in summer.
No, but
Chengdu is relatively comfortable in the summer compared to other cities.
Chengdu in summer is really hot. Still, you have 40 degrees, but it's really humid.
Not as bad as Guangdong.
You got like 90%.
Not as bad as Guangdong. Not as bad as Guizhou. Not as bad as...
Guizhou, I think Guizhou was way more bearable.
Yeah, but you wouldn't put the capital in Guizhou, would you?
No.
We're picking a reasonable city to make the capital with the best weather. People say Chengdu has the best weather.
Do you think if Chengdu was the capital of the People's Republic of China, it would be so gay nowadays?
I think they would have at least legalized gay marriage, but I don't know what else would have changed.
Okay, now that is another like timeline that I would like to.
But I think Beijing was a good choice for a lot of reasons. The weather is the only downside.
It was the best choice at the moment, definitely.
Yeah.
And they unified China shortly after, except for Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan.
Yep.
Hong Kong and Macau, they reunite in the 1997, is it?
July the 1st, 1997, Hong Kong is given back. Before that, Macau is handed over to.
Yes, and Taiwan, pending problem, let's say.
Yeah. It's on the docket, but, you know.
yeah, I mean, everyone knows that at some point it's going to happen.
Not everyone knows.
Well, it's a given.
It's a given for you.
It's a given for both the government of the People's Republic of China and also for the government of Taiwan. Like many parties, they acknowledge that
one party acknowledges
the reunification is bound to happen, and they're trying to just make it in the best way possible. Because also many people in Taiwan, they still think like they want to be unified.
The old people in Taiwan.
The old people, yeah, because the breaking of relations between both sides, it was really traumatic. Like many families were split, like half of them staying in Taiwan, half of them staying in the mainland. It has been a problem for many ongoing years. Many generations still, they think it's a problem that is worth tackling in a diplomatic way, of course.
Yep.
So after that, what happens? What can you tell us about the soon development of the People's Republic of China?
Well, so pretty soon they're getting heavy consulting from the Soviet Union. And just like the Soviet Union, they begin to start with some 5-year plans. The 5-year plans basically continue throughout the history of the People's Republic of China. We're going to go through them pretty quickly because I think 5-year plans are super interesting, but most people think 5-year plans are pretty boring. So the first 5-year plan is in 1953. This is kind of after they established like the Great Hall of the People and like how they're going to run the country and everything, and they've got the media all set up. So they're very much ready to start developing the country. The 1953 5-year plan is very Soviet. It's all about collectivization. It's all about agriculture and just trying to set up the supply chains to feed the people first. Because China is very, very poor at this point. I mean, it's probably one of the poorest countries on the planet by this point. The Korean War starts very soon after. Initially, China is not involved. And then they send the volunteer army to support the north. The volunteer army and the northern troops do a very good job of kind of sweeping up the south, and then the UN gets involved and pushes them back to something the parallel.
Yeah, they call it the parallel. I think.
It's like the 22nd parallel has got a number.
Yeah, something like that. It was like 51. I'm not sure.
Or they go up and then they go down and then they go up and then they go down. There's a lot of air battles between the PLA Air Force and the United Nations Air Force, which is primarily American pilots.
I think at some point the Northern Army managed to get into Seoul. And
Yeah, that's
it was
the start.
repelled
That's
by the USA. So the war was about to finish really quickly until the USA.
The UN.
arrived. Yeah, the UN. Well, mostly the USA.
Well, you have to say the UN unless you're getting into like beef and shit. Then we're just gonna say the
I'm
UN.
not beefing today. I promise.
Well, what I think is interesting about the Korean War is like the aviation history, of course, and then like the military history stuff. But the aviation history is interesting because 10 years before this, the American Air Force was in China fighting the Japanese with the Chinese and training Chinese pilots. And these same Chinese pilots would then return to fight Americans over Korea.
But this time with Soviet planes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this time they were being trained by Soviet pilots. I think they regard it as a success. I think it's hard to see either side of the Korean War as a success, based on the fact that there was never officially an end to the Korean War.
Well, you also end up with another plan of reunification, which still is not going to be solved anytime soon, I think.
Yeah, but kind of like with the Soviets, the end of World War II just immediately becomes America is the most powerful country on the planet, and then there's obviously massive tensions between China and America. So in 1955, Mao says, among other things, he says that they need the atomic bomb. This is quite a big debate in the Communist Party because a lot of them see atomic weapons as very bad. I mean, I see atomic weapons as very bad, but
I do too.
Yeah, controversially, Mao was very keen on the atomic bomb because of the threat from the Americans. Near the end of the Korean War, is it Patton? I think it is Patton.
It was Patton that said that they should like create a cobalt belt in Korea.
Yeah. Well, he also suggested bombing much of China. Truman later suggested bombing Fujian as well in response to tensions over Taiwan.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand Mao in that situation. Like, hey, these guys are threatening to bomb us with an unbeatable weapon.
Yeah.
The only way we have to counteract or to make them not do it, to give them a reason not to, is to tell them, yeah, we have the same weapon.
The 50s aren't very eventful, really. I mean, there's a lot of fighting over agriculture, but it's mostly the struggle of a new nation setting up its own government, feeding its people. 1958 is the second 5-year plan, where we get what the Chinese Wikipedia refers to as local marshalling of agricultural resources. This is interesting. It's very much a split from the Soviet ideology. It's kind of like trying to decentralize their like central planning. So they're setting up these communes for people to collectivize the agriculture. And they're also at this point doing massive property transfer, so transferring land to the peasants, in coordination with this like development of agriculture.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that even if they get many support from the Soviets at the beginning, both in the material aspect and also in the logistical aspect, they send many experts to help them set up their policies and to set up the economy. They also by this point, the USSR is already been way more centralized than what it was at the beginning, obviously. Yeah. And the Chinese planning is taking kind of the opposite way, trying to initially, as you say, decentralize the economies, decentralize the planning, which is still ongoing until today. And it's also worth mentioning that many of the laws and they don't call it exactly laws in many cases, they just call them like movements.
Yeah.
They are called like that because essentially they enforce the application of these policies through mass movements. For example, you have the new marriage law, which was passed, I think, in 1953 or 1951.
Yeah.
One of the first mass movements that got massive success in China, which essentially gives equal rights to both genders at the time. They abolish any unjust treatment of women, essentially, and they managed to get it so they managed to get such a quick success because they make every woman in the, well, not every, you also have reactionary elements.
Very reactionary elements.
But they managed to convince all women that this is going to be something good for them. And they protect them. They say, okay, because this is something aimed at you, we're going to organize women to implement these policies by their own. And we're going to provide them the means necessary to feel protected while doing so, because they're going to be attacked, of course. So in the end, this is also very successful. And this is the ideology or the planning that takes shape during the application of their future policies. They create mass movements that enforce these policies, and these mass movements are made up by the people mainly affected by these policies. If it sounds redundant, but if you're gonna make an agricultural law, the mass movement is gonna be composed mainly of peasants, for example, just to give an example.
Do you want to move on to the 60s? There's a lot more in the 60s I've got.
There is many things. Anyway, I mean, I also we should mention from the 1950 to the 1956 is a rather loose period, as you were saying. We aim for decentralization. We aim for rather self-organized movements, and really in which the constant criticism towards the organization is encouraged, and things are gonna change in the following years. We're gonna see some periods that are way looser than the others, and etc. So you go with the 60s.
All right.
What happens?
I mean, there's a lot that happens, but I love talking about the bomb. So after the Soviets kind of stop helping them with aircraft development and stop helping them with bomb development, this is kind of before the Sino-Soviet split. It takes a while, but the first Chinese atomic bomb test happens in 1964. In the last episode, we were mentioning that scientists were coming back to China. Many of the scientists, including one very special guy whose name completely escapes me, he was on the Manhattan Project and he was kicked out during the Red Scare. And he came back to China, and he was vital in developing the first atomic bomb.
Oppenheimer.
When is the Sino-Soviet split? Do you have that?
I think it was around the right before the trial.
Isn't it the start of the 60s?
Gonna have to. We should include in the.
You can get it up.
Okay.
But basically, this is also the start of the Third Front program. So people talk about the agricultural development in the 50s, and they later talk about cultural movements in the 60s in China as big events that happen in China brought down by the government that may be controversial or maybe very successful, depending on
61.
61, right?
It's debatable date. It doesn't happen exactly in a single strike.
Yeah, but there is a clash on the border between Chinese troops and Soviet troops around this time too.
Yeah, and then you also have the Vietnam invasion that also doesn't help. I mean, there is an accumulation of debates and actions that doesn't help to the relations to be further established or be carried out in good terms.
So in the 60s, China is very isolated. I mean, they keep on having fights over Taiwan. They're now in beef with the Soviet Union. So they view these as two fronts. They have the front with the Americans, which is the coast. They think the Americans are going to attack. They're going to attack just like the Japanese did. They're going to do an air attack on all the coastal cities, flatten them, probably with nuclear weapons, and then move into the center of the country. And they're very military-minded. So this is very much in the minds of the leadership. And now they have this second front with the Soviet Union. And they think if the Soviet Union and Americans attack at the same time, because this is kind of a period of the 60s are not happy with each other, but they're still on speaking terms, the Americans and the Russians. So the Chinese are very scared that this is going to very quickly go badly for them. So they begin this program, the Third Front program. This is the biggest program of government investment in Chinese history, and no one knows this. 205 billion RMB is spent on
at the time.
Over the period. So this starts in 1964 and goes on until the 80s. But most of the development is between 64 and 74-ish. And there's 1,100 projects. So what they want to do is they want to increase the industrial development of the interior of the country. So they carve out the coastal areas and they carve out the north part of China, which they think the Soviets will attack. And they just left with the very mountainy or deserty or rainforested parts of central, southern and northern China. And this is where they want to build all of their weapons factories, all of their steel plants, all of their coal plants, all of their power plants, all of their railroads, all of their new villages, all of their research institutions.
There was an obsession with steel production. Like, well, saying, like if you produce more steel, you're more advanced, you're more on par with the modern economy.
Yeah, this is the Soviet psychological thing. They've seen the success of the first few 5-year plans in the Soviet Union under Stalin, who massively increases steel production there. The biggest project in the Third Front is the Panzerhua steel factory. I don't know where it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's near Chengdu. But this is one of the most impressive steel factories in the world. It's not the biggest. It wasn't even at the time, but it's the biggest in China at the time. It is a tiered steel plant refinery built into the side of a mountain. So normally a steel plant will rely very heavily on pipelines and railways inside the plant to move stuff around. The Panzerhua is like a tiered rice farm where you've got these tiers and then they're just huge blocks of stone carved into the side of this mountain. You can look at pictures of it. It's really impressive.
We'll put some pictures around
and
here.
And when they're transporting charcoal or coal and raw iron around the steel plant, they are transporting it in giant buckets along suspended cableways up and down the mountain. And this is following a very important principle of like decentralizing industrial production in the country in case they get into a nuclear conflict, so they can keep everything going. So they have the Panzerhua steel plant. They also build the Jiuquan and Xichang missile launch sites. So Xichang is in Jiangxi? Jiuquan is in the desert. Xichang is in the forested parts of China. These are two very, very secret inland missile launching plants that are later used as space launch sites. And this becomes a big problem.
Xichang is still being used today, isn't it?
Xichang and Jiuquan both are still used. Xichang is used less because it's not very big. So they only launched some of the Long March rockets there now because Xichang is the one that has all the controversies about first stages dropping on villages. Even though I don't think this is massively controversial, it causes a big hubbub in the press when they launch from Xichang. Jiuquan is in the desert. Jiuquan is now where they're launching the new reusable rockets. And it's where a lot of the commercial space companies operate.
The Zhuche? The Zhuche? The one that was
Zhuche 3. Yeah. Yes. That's launched out of Jiuquan. Also, it's the only manned mission capable launch site, crewed mission capable launch site in China. So both of those rocket launch sites, the Panzerhua steel factory, as well as 1,097 other projects, one of which I visited in the mountains outside of Guiyang and Guizhou. They did the jet engine development. So domestic production of jet engines is very, very important for China to build up the inventory of like MiG fighter jets or like MiG copycat fighter jets that they build and the strategic bombers they build later. So they have aircraft engine factories inside the mountains in Guiyang.
Yeah, because most of the jet fighters at this time, they are produced under license provided by the Soviets.
Yeah, exactly.
So producing nationally developed jet engines has been a long-standing problem for China, for the Chinese army development until just very recently. Actually, most of the models and designs that they have been using until the last few years have been provided by the Soviets or were developed from Soviet designs, and now they're finally just doing like locally engineered ones finally. So yeah, it was a big problem if linking it with what you were saying about the growth of the army and the oncoming threats that they were seeing from both the USA and the Soviet Union.
Yeah, so this kind of lines up with in 1966, the confusingly the third 5-year plan, 13 years after the first 5-year plan, is focusing on two things. One is defense. So this is a very defense-oriented period in China's history. I mean, the intellectuals in China are mostly moved to these new factories or to like communes, basically. Every like engineer in China at this point is now working in a mountain base or in a rainforest base or in the fucking desert somewhere. The legacy of this is that these places like the Guiyang factory I visited, they now have like little tourist centers. So if you like work there in the 60s, they invite you like back to like come and like have some nostalgia over like the old 60s programs. One other factor of this is like a lot of these places were very isolated, which later during the Cultural Revolution like becomes very important for the development. So it's
already like I also wanted to link it to like a couple things that I wanted to mention. I don't know if I should say it now or
if it happens in the 60s, do it now. If it happens in the 70s,
a little bit before.
Okay,
before.
Go for it.
Okay, do you want first the culturally interesting fact, or do you want the kind of politically relevant and funny fact?
Second one.
The second one,
just
the funny one.
Yeah, go
No. I'm gonna say both. I don't fucking care.
Well, fucking say both of them then.
Okay, no, but I'm asking which one do you want first? I'm giving you a choice.
With chronological order.
Okay, chronological order. First, then the politically relevant and kind of funny one. 1955. I also said before, Zhou Enlai. He was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
One of the most relevant figures in the Communist Party. And a really loved figure until today.
And very handsome.
And very handsome. And really, really fucking smart guy. Like possibly one of the most politically relevant figures in the whole 20th century. I would say way ahead Mao even. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But Zhou Enlai, there is an attempt on his life in 1955. He was supposed to be flying from Hong Kong to Jakarta. And for various reasons that is still debated until today, he missed the flight. The plane exploded mid-flight and killed 16 of the 19 people aboard. And it is theorized that the Kuomintang was behind this attempt on his life, which also doesn't help to have smooth relationships between the mainland and Taiwan. And I just wanted to say, like, this is a Seth MacFarlane 9/11 situation.
Yeah.
Completely. He was supposed to miss the flight. I don't know. The people debate about it. He was like told by someone that, hey, you better not take it. Or
don't take the flight tomorrow to school.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, the quiet kid tells you to not take the flight. You just listen to him.
The nationalist kid.
And also, in 1958, we have a really big event that I think probably the most culturally relevant event that helps unify and standardize the language, which is the introduction of pinyin.
Pinyin, right.
Yeah.
I didn't know pinyin was introduced then.
1958. I thought it was introduced way before, to be honest. Before then, we had the Bapomofo, we had the Wade Giles system.
Wade Giles.
Wade Giles attempts to relate the Chinese characters.
It's romanization of Chinese
romanization, which is essentially how to pronounce with a Western, let's say, alphabet.
Wade Giles was kind of a posh Brit who, Wade is the posh Brit. I don't know about Giles, but they're two posh people who tried to romanize the Chinese script, and I don't think they did a very good job. But people still use this system. That's why Mao Zedong's name is sometimes written as TSE.
That is why Tsinghua is read at TS.
Yeah. If you see a TS, it's Wade Giles. If you see a Z, it's Pinyin.
Tsinghua University was built during the First Republic. They still use the Wade Giles pronunciation. And it doesn't have many of the sounds. They don't have to do with the way Chinese people or we pronounce it. So that is why I don't think it's
And Bopomofo is like Chinese characters as phonemes. So they would break up the Chinese character into the first sound and the second sound. Yeah. And they would have characters for both of those sounds. And it's still used in Taiwan by old people to type.
It is still taught in schools in the mainland.
Yeah.
But
less useful, I think.
It's less useful, but it helps you get the nick of some of the sounds, I think. In the mainland, both Pinyin and Bapomofo are taught. In Taiwan, mostly only Bapomofo. You can guess why. One of the things that I think is just interesting is that Zhou Youyuan, which is the creator of this system, he says he's not the father of Pinyin, he's the son. Because he means like the Pinyin is taking a lot from all these previous attempts of romanization.
Yeah.
But it's really much more purified, way more simplified also, and adapts better to the sounds, to the phonetics of the Chinese language. I think if you get the nick fit, you will find out why is preferred over Wei Giles or Papamov or any other. And then you also have the Great Famine, which is also happening during this period between 1959 to 1961, and it also has to do with what you were saying of massive displacements of people and of commerce from certain zones to others. Even if we still have the commune-based development in some parts of the country, there is also an attempt to centralize most of the production into the big cities, which also causes a lot of troubles. And also, it is observed in a paper that I'm gonna just put around here, which is called Grain Exports and the Causes of China's Great Famine from 1959 to 1961, county-level evidence. In this paper, what they mention is that the main cause was not that the production of food was decaying. Actually, during 1959 or 1960, there was an increase in the production of food.
Yeah.
But the thing that caused it, among other factors apart from the natural disasters, is also there is a centralized attempt to export grain when actually they don't need to do that. The people are still in need of that grain, but they think the central government thinks that exporting food to another countries is a way to prove that the Chinese economy is being developed, but it still is not the time to do it, obviously. And another of the reasons is that there is a big waste of food at the communal tables, which is also observed in Chinese society until recently. When you go to these big meetings or big when you go to
a banquet, you go to a banquet, they traditionally waste a lot of food almost.
Until very recently.
Well, there was a crackdown.
There was a big crackdown. It's still ongoing. But this effect has been readily reduced, in which, to show how rich you are, you just order a lot of food that you're never going to eat and no one ends up eating.
It's also a technological problem. I mean, there's famously cases of people trying to melt down tools and stuff to make tractors. And I mean, this is a very much exaggerated thing, but this is kind of an example of how undeveloped the country was in the time. And
exaggerated, but it's still happening, which is what I was saying, the craze over production steel at the biggest scale possible.
Yeah. But the country does recover from this relatively quickly. In 1964, I said they detonate an atom bomb. 1966 is when they developed the first ICBM, the Dongfang 2. Not the Dongfang 1. I think the Dongfang 2 is the Dongfang 2 is medium range. I don't remember which one the ICBM is.
Dongfang 2, we have one of them in our campus.
Yeah, you're right. There's one of them in the Shahe campus. And then 1967, they detonate a hydrogen bomb. And this is the two bombs of the two bombs, one satellite program. And then there's a kind of a pause, I suppose. I was going to mention as well, during the 1966, when they're recovering from the famine, they have this Chuan Yong kind of program where they're focusing industrial development as well as on defense, on eating, wearing, and using. So daily essentials, basically. And they're still thinking about how to supply the population's daily essentials during the 60s.
Also in 1967, one of my favorite episodes until now, is that by this point already you have a fight inside the Communist Party for power. You have many figures losing power in benefit of others, and Mao Zedong is one of the figures that his leadership is being debated or fought against by many other parts. And this time is when we start having the Cultural Revolution, which is characterized by many excesses and many problems to the further development of the country, but also many other effects that they see the good side and reverse into today's current social situation and economic situation. One of them is that in Shanghai, for example, is one of these places that the economic production has been completely halted, which is really funny considering that today Shanghai is the richest city in the whole country. This creates a lot of poverty, many social problems, And Mao thinks that there is a good opportunity to try to restore the previous power that he and his cadre had until now. The Chiang Chun-chiao and Yao Wenyuan take power of Shanghai in 1967. They gather the masses and they install the second Shanghai Commune. The first one happened during the First Republic of China, which was led by Zhou Enlai, and it's very short-lived. This one is also very short-lived because even if Mao is all for it, and the Shanghai Commune is based on respecting the figure of Mao as the leader of the party, Mao also realized that if they do this in Shanghai, the next step is going to be taken in Beijing.
Yeah.
And this is going to further make the governance of China even more difficult. So in the end, he ends up calling for the complete halt of this thing, and the government of Shanghai is restored to the previous situation. But these problems in the end end up being addressed. Another funny episode is that in 1968, Mao receives a basket of mangoes by a Pakistani representative, and instead of eating them himself, he gives them to the propaganda team at Tsinghua University, which is one of the main points from where the Cultural Revolution in Beijing is being organized by the young students, and this creates a craze for mangoes over the whole country.
The mango craze.
Yeah, they tour these mangoes or replicas of these mangoes around the whole country. And I don't know if you think this is one of the reasons why still you can see many people loving mango so much in China nowadays. I think maybe it's one of the points that helped to establish this fruit as something so desirable. You can see still many products of many sweets being made out of mangoes nowadays.
But it's also the best fruit. I mean, mango's unquestionably the best fruit. So.
Yeah, I'm up for it. But until then, you have no mangoes in China, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it comes the point that we mentioned early into today's program. That is that in 25th of October 1971, China joins the United Nations.
Yeah.
And this is the beginning of the normalization of the relationships with the rest of Western powers.
Yeah.
Namely the USA, which is one of your favorite chapters now. It's coming.
Well, you skipped my favorite thing, which is you haven't skipped it, but I was going to say that after the Cultural Revolution, the 2 bombs 1 program is massively slowed down. Sorry, 2 bombs 1 satellite program is slowed down by this. Famously, it's quite funny. But in 1970, they launched China's first satellite on a Long March 1 from Jiuquan, and this is the Dongfang Hong. The East is Red 1. It's kind of a Sputnik type transmitter satellite that transmits the anthem, The East is Red, Dongfang Hong.
Are you gonna sing it?
No, I don't know how to sing it actually. Then they build this kind of like a dodecahedron, like lots of flat sides making up a sphere, and they do this so that it reflects light and it's supposed to be visible. But then the scientists realized that it wasn't actually that visible because these kind of small satellites don't reflect enough light to be very visible unless you're in, and you know exactly where to look. So they put a massive reflector dish onto the second stage. So when the second stage is boosting, everyone can see it. And then the second stage comes back, I believe. But yeah, this is China's first satellite, slightly delayed by the Cultural Revolution. But then we get to 72. So in 71, I think, Kissinger secretly visits China. And this is because Kissinger's master plan is to befriend China and isolate the Soviet Union because he can see how China's economic development is going to keep progressing. And because of this, Kissinger is a big friend of the Chinese people. They regard him as like a peace lover instead of a warmonger. I mean, in the Chinese Wikipedia, you can read Kissinger's biography, and it's like he's the greatest American friend of China.
The greatest American imperialist to ever live.
Do you know how he secretly visits China? I read about this yesterday.
No.
It's really funny.
I didn't even know that he secretly visited China before 1972.
Yeah. So in he's trying to arrange Nixon to visit. And
he hides in a box of mangoes.
I wish that was true. That would be very funny. What he does is he does a tour of other South Asian countries, and then while he's in Pakistan for a week, he pretends to be ill for 2 days, and while he's ill, he's on a flight to Beijing, and he secretly visits Mao and the Politburo, and they have lots of discussions. There's lots of funny things about like Kissinger's tall wife or something. Like Mao says,
it was kissing you. Like, oh.
Well, Mao says like your wife is so fucking tall.
There is a video of them meeting, and Mao is like,
he's quite old at this point as well. Like, it's worth pointing out. And this sets up 1972 Nixon visits. This is a very self-serving visit. This is like, I don't know. I think it's very funny because Nixon's maybe one of the funniest U.S. presidents. So.
Yeah, it's all white now.
There's fucking blizzard out there. But yeah, Nixon's about to do his re-election, and this is the this is the beginning of the Watergate scandal. So during his re-election campaign, he has his agents very like sparsely linked to him. Very distantly linked to him, like bugging the Watergate Hotel for the Democratic National Convention. And then he's like visiting China. He's really trying to like solidify, but then everything kind of backfires. So, but it's funny, like this is the peak of Nixon, is him visiting China. It is, until Trump, he is the only president to visit, I believe. I don't think any of the rest of them. Is it? I think so.
Not even during the Olympic Games or anything like that?
No, definitely not during the Olympic Games. But Trump visits later, but I think this is like the first one since Nixon. There's actually not that much to say. I mean, it goes very well, and then it begins this kind of period of like détente with the United States, which coincides kind of with the slowing down of the Third Front program. Investment stops in defense at this point because they realize if the Americans are their friends, then there's no chance of the Soviets attacking. And this kind of sets up an ideological like reset. I think this is one of the reasons that when Mao dies and Deng takes over, that like economic reform is successful. Because politically, that would be like suicide. It's suggesting that you kind of embrace a bit of capitalism. But I think because they've got this data, like the like defrosting like relations with the United States. Yeah. I think this is like.
I think it definitely was a crucial part of the whole thing. Like, I don't think if Nixon was able to visit China and find such a good situation from both sides. Say, I think Deng Xiaoping wouldn't have been able to say something like, "Yeah, you know what? Getting rich isn't nothing bad with it."
We just had the American president visit, like, you know.
Yeah, he was a nice guy, you know what?
Right. Yeah. Also in the 70s, before we get to Big Man Deng, I wanted to give an honorable shout out to Yuan Longping, who during the 70s, he, as part of this like ideological thing, he is, I mean, much of the science in China at this point is very Sovietized. It's very like Russophile. So
even the architecture.
Even the architecture, the biological, is that my flag? No. Yeah, you check if it's still recording. The biologists are very much endorsing not Mendel. Is it Mendel? What's the Russian guy called?
No, Mendel.
Mendel. No, it's the other guy.
No. Mendel is the nice guy.
Right, Lysenko. I've got it here.
Lysenko.
So most of them are very much like Lysenko pilled. Like they believe that like plants and animals can adapt to their surroundings over their lifetime, and they're inheriting traits like through their environment. And Mendelian genetics are kind of, I mean, it's really simplified, but Mendelian genetics is like, oh, you can breed stuff together to create desirable traits. Mm-hmm. Yuan Longping is a biologist studying rice who is kind of secretly borrowing books and reading about Mendelian genetics and starts hybridizing wild rice species. He takes different species of wild rice with like favorable properties like survivability or like yield, and he's hybridizing them, and he you know, is really successful. And I don't know if it's surprising that no one has done this before. I think it's not a coincidence that this happens around the time of like reform in China. But this hybridized rice massively increases like grain yields and really, really helps feed the growing population of China that is about to explode Like,
Yeah.
without Yuan Longping, you would have another famine, like without a doubt. And he receives, I think he gets a Nobel Prize for this. He is widely regarded as like China's best scientist.
But not only for China, like this is massively important for the whole world. Like I think people sometimes refer to this finding as the single most, the single biggest advance in alleviating poverty
It's
and
definitely the
hunger.
yeah,
in
it's
the world.
definitely the biggest. It's definitely the biggest invention in agriculture. Like
Yeah.
full stop.
Yeah, like there it is.
Since the
Don't talk
invention
more.
of like irrigation or something. Do you want to get to Mao dying and Deng taking over?
Well, apart from that, there is another important thing, like single episode, and that is like in 1974, Yang Chifa, farmer, finds the first Qin emperor, Tom.
Oh right,
in
yes.
Xi'an.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, this means the army, the Terracotta Army, that is the Qin Shi Huang's tomb. And still it hasn't been completed until today because of what we said also in the first episode.
Yeah, about the mercury.
Yeah, the mercury rivers and the mercury vipers.
Do you know all the four farmers that found the tomb died in mysterious circumstances?
I didn't know about it, but
They're unlikely to be mercury poisoning and unlikely to be anything suspicious. But people attribute it to like ghosts because they all died in like accidents and like freak shit that happened.
and also another important figure during this time that rises in China is Tu Youyou. Have you heard about her?
I don't know too, yo.
Well, she received the Nobel Prize in medicine in 2015. Sorry.
Oh right, maybe I do know her.
Yeah. She found the cure for malaria.
Okay, not her then.
No, she found the cure for malaria. Do you know how?
How?
Chinese traditional medicine.
Really?
Yeah. She found out that there is a disease that was treated in Chinese traditional medicine, which was not called anything specifically, but all the symptoms had a lot to do with malaria. So she theorized they were actually talking about this in ancient scriptures. And based on these findings, or like this like millenary treatise on medicine, she found out like actually Chinese traditional medicine had something to, they had already found the cure for malaria and was completely overlooked until that day. And she found it in the 70s, 80s, I think. So yeah, one of the other like massive findings of Chinese sciences that is beneficial for the whole world that maybe not all people know about it.
There's another female biologist, doctor that does a lot of work on cancer, who also receives a Nobel Prize, but I forgot her name.
I don't know.
No, there's much later. I think it might be in the 90s.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah, like this is like really important, is like the period of like Chinese scientists beginning to be recognized for very big achievements.
Yeah, they don't get recognized until many years later in many cases, when people really realize that their findings really work, and we can really look back on what is the impact of such big single events on human history.
But I mean, the 70s is just very interesting. So in 1976, hold on, that's not right.
No, we already covered
1976, Mao dies.
Yeah.
He institutes a pretty shit successor who no one likes, and Deng Xiaoping kind of quickly takes over. Deng Xiaoping almost immediately, like it's really surprising if you look at the amount of time between him taking over and the start of reform and opening up. They have a massive Politburo meeting. They agree on the next 5 year. They alter the 5-year plan that starts in 1976, and they say we're doing market reform. We're opening up. This is probably the quickest any economy has ever grown in history.
Was it that like he said like by the end of the millennia, the Chinese PIB should have been increased by tenfold.
Yeah.
And then he said like, okay, based on that prediction, it will see another tenfold increase by 2030, I think he said.
Yeah.
And actually the first tenfold increase was produced by the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
And the second one was achieved by 2005.
2005,
It's a massive increase, the single biggest economic development in human history by any means.
Yeah, there's a lot of like reasons for why this is. I mean, it is it's easy to characterize in a few different ways, but like there's a large population in China. They've developed very strong science and like domestic technology, and then what they do is they establish a lot of special economic zones. So they start with maritime hubs. They start with developing Shanghai, but they establish Shenzhen.
The special economic zone.
Yeah, Shenzhen is the number one special economic zone. I mean, Shanghai isn't a special economic zone as far as I'm aware.
No.
But they establish a lot of different port cities, including like Ningbo and stuff, as these special economic zones where you can do, I think it's tax-free like transactions on property, and then the business taxes are reduced, and there's all this other kind of stuff. But importantly, now this is something that I find very interesting. They established economic zones for manufacturing, but not for fucking hell, what am I thinking of? Like import-export.
Yeah.
Import-export is still heavily regulated, and this means that this is also the time that Hong Kong becomes like the fastest growing city in the world. And this is something that one of my friends on like Twitter very like heavily advocated, and I learned a lot about it through them. But like Hong Kong in this period is like one of the most interesting places in the world, because you have the manufacturing giant that is China like waking up and transitioning to electronics and consumer goods.
Yeah.
But you don't have an established import-export hub. Yeah. You have the roots. So what happens is Hong Kong becomes this international site of like explosion of economic activity where everyone is buying Chinese goods and selling them to the West. And Hong Kong gets very, 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 very rich, and the banking sector and the financial sector there, and you know, the government there. Just
there is a lot of money coming in.
There is so much fucking money. There is so much fucking crime. It is just one of the most incredible places to be in the 20th century.
It must have been so crazy.
Yeah. But one of the other things, so there's foreign enterprises setting up in China, and they're building factories to produce commercial goods using cheap labor to sell back to their countries. And this kind of seems like China's being exploited. And I definitely think there is some argument that like, yeah, this does decrease living standards for a lot of people who previously were in state-run factories. Now they're going into private enterprises, and they're definitely being exploited or like, you know, treated like cattle or something. But for the country, this is very good. This is foreign enterprises come in and they build factories and they bring over the manufacturing processes, and then this is technology transfer is the nice way to put it. But because these are joint Chinese foreign enterprises, the technology is transferred to domestic enterprises who can then set up their own manufacturing. By 1981, something that is becoming very clear is like the environmental impact, the labor impact, and the demographic problems that are coming from such a massive increase in economic activity, which will become like the next 20 years of like infighting, basically, is how to deal with this.
I think like the benefits that the whole country sees from this, like everyone knows, like for example the living conditions see a really big decrease in general.
I wouldn't say it's a decrease in living conditions. I would say it's a stagnation because there's so much wealth being transferred.
I think stagnation is better called.
That's very pretty.
Now it's gonna be a really good time to go out. But also the thing is like this forces the whole country to set up a really well-developed network of logistics throughout the whole country, which is why still nowadays, even if the salaries in China are much higher than, for example, in Vietnam, China is still the main manufacturing hub in the world, not because producing here is cheaper than in other countries, but because the logistics is so good, like you have many other benefits.
One of the things that
compensate.
One of the things that contributes to the logistics network is that they spend 200 billion RMB on building railways through the middle of the country.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like you have like this sudden urge of like building railway and subways and everything everywhere, not only to.
Well, the Beijing metro doesn't start construction yet.
No, but the metro will see the construction a bit later. The Beijing metro was already starting to be being built? No. Okay, it will be later.
Well, maybe Beijing Line. Actually, you might be right. Beijing Line 1 is built when they demolished the wall.
Yeah,
I think it's built in the 80s. Though.
Yeah, I think it was around this time. Yeah, but not only from that point of view, but also like you have this massive also like exodus of people from the rural small villages to the big cities. So you also have to build infrastructure for them to move in, move out, go back to their homes every now and then. You have to build a lot of new houses. Anyway, and also like, for example, nowadays, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Hong Kong, they are connected by subway, which is something crazy. You have 3 cities that are like pretty well far away from each other, connected by a subway.
Yeah.
Not even by train, which
You
is
said Wenzhou, Shanghai, and
Guangzhou, Shanghai.
Guangzhou,
Yeah.
Shenzhen.
Shenzhen. I think, yeah, it was Shenzhen. Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And later, you also mentioned like Shanghai is not like one of the.
Are you talking about now? Because they're not connected by subway then.
No, I'm talking about now.
Oh, now I can tell you all about that. I know.
No, but what I mean is like we start to understand why these 3 cities are connected by a subway for things that are happening at this time. You know,
we used to have Nanjing and Suzhou. Now are connected.
Are they?
Yeah, that was the first one. That was before.
I didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So again, I'm just like making testament of how fast the development in terms of transportation, for example, happens, and this creates a really well-connected network of logistics.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to talk about the 80s development without talking about today, because it's just like this is the legacy of like central investment and public-private partnerships and infrastructure.
And also, Shanghai is not the special economic zone, but it is where the first stock market of the country is
Isn't
established.
the first McDonald's there too or something?
The first McDonald's, I think it was Shenzhen.
Okay.
That is also in 1995.
Yeah.
And the stock market also opens around the same time. The last One Year Way TV show deals about this thing, about suddenly all these people opening their own enterprises or discovering how to participate into the stock market. So this also creates a huge flow of wealth from certain parts to another.
Well, we've done an hour, and this is the most romantic period of China. We can go on about it for ages, but I feel like we are going to return to it a bit. So let's just do the highlights from like the 80s until today. Okay?
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know how much you've prepared to talk about, but like July the 1st, 1997, the best event in human history. Hong Kong is officially handed over to China. This is just so symbolic. I mean,
very cinematic.
The most cinematic event in human history. You've got King Charles, then Prince Charles, sitting in the rain, just watching the end of basically crying.
He was crying.
The end of British colonialism. I mean, not officially the end, but you know, like I like to say this is the end. Like people say the 19th century is the British century, the 20th century is the American century, and the 21st century is the Chinese century, baby. So the July the 1st, 1997 is like a very good starting point for that. June the 31st, 1997, the biggest Fatboy Slim concert of the rave. They have a rave in Hong Kong the night before the handover, and if I had a time machine, I would go to that rave.
We missed the other one. Where is Wham playing?
Wham goes to the Great Wall in Beijing in like 92 or something.
Yeah, which was like the first Western pop band playing in China.
Michael Jackson visits shortly after.
Yes.
And if you want to like do retrospective, Kanye West is in Shanghai.
Kanye West moved with his mom. She was teaching in Shanghai or Nanjing.
I swear it's Shanghai.
I think it was Nanjing.
It might be Nanjing. But yeah, Kanye West.
His mom was working in the university teaching there.
Yeah. By 2000, China is the 6th largest economy in the world, which is like 50 years before that, they're building tractors out of spoons or something.
Yeah, something like that. Like, and vice versa, like melting tractors to build spoons.
Yeah. And we love talking about infrastructure. So honorable mention, in 2003, the Qinhuangdao Shenyang Railway opens. The first high-speed rail in China. Qinhuangdao and Shenyang aren't two big cities, but this is the trial of massive high-speed rail construction. So in the 2000s, you get like the most new subway stations anywhere on the planet, the most new subway lines anywhere on the planet, and you get the development of the world's largest high-speed rail network, connecting up the entirety of the country by 2015. I think like Xinjiang is connected.
2008, Chengdu, for example, has a single line of subway. Nowadays, they have, I think, if I'm correct, 15.
Well, so yeah,
there is a massive.
2008. we get the Beijing Olympics, and this is like another symbolic moment. So Beijing's subway system during the Olympics, which they've spent a lot of time preparing for, is I think like 7 lines. You've got like line 1, line 2. The Chongping line is built.
Yeah.
Line 13 is like half built, and line 1 is built a lot earlier. And you've got
line 8 was planned because it also crosses like half of the center of the city.
Yeah, but line 8 was quite small, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got the basic subway system in 2008, and now there are 37 lines in Beijing. Just 20 years later. The
Olympic Games are like the culmination of the first stage of the whole opening.
Well, I want to end this episode with the fucking South Park episode. Do you know the episode?
No.
So the plot of the episode is Cartman watches the opening ceremony of the 2008 Olympic Games, and he starts having nightmares about the Chinese taking over. And he just, it's racist South Park shit. So they've got all the guys on the drums, and South Park, and Cartman's going, no.
But that was
the Chinese are coming.
And like it is joking, but I think for many people joking. It was like that.
Oh no, it like, absolutely has.
In the West, you were like, effect. We are fucked.
They see like 2,000 people with drums, and they're like, oh my god, the West is over.
Because it was like really big spectacle. And no, it was not only for showing like how well organized everything was, but also to say like, yeah, you know what, we're doing things right, we're coming over, we are already on track. And that was like a good testament to see how much the country has developed in just barely 20 years.
Especially funny is 2008 Beijing, like fucking like 20,000 drummers, like millions of people, like etc. 2012 London, fucking Mr. Bean.
Hey, what do you think about Paris?
I don't know.
Paris was.
Okay, tell you what, no Olympics opening ceremony is bad. I actually do like all of them, but what they decide to show is always very important. Like Beijing is like, look at us, we've got all this shit, we're so good at planning. And then London is like, we've got Mr. Bean and the Queen.
Yeah, basically that was the whole thing.
And then Paris is like, we're woke, which I respect. Woke mafia, but still, like, yeah, we just have to see what happens in the... Where is 2028? Do you know? 2028.
2028. What is
the next Olympics? Do you know where it is?
Well, in the 2020, we have also the Winter Olympic Games.
Yeah, the Winter Olympic Games.
Which makes Beijing the first city in the world to have both Olympic Games, both summer and winter. Well,
also, the massive difference between 2008 and 2020 is 2008 air pollution is a big problem in a lot of cities around the world. But every Chinese city has a problem with air pollution. And within 12 years, they have solved that problem. In 2020... they demonstrate that they've solved that problem by shutting down all of the factories.
Yeah.
They deindustrialize Beijing and they turn the industrial parks into art districts and fucking ski jump places.
Well, they also impose many more policies on the companies on how they have to do, for example, waste disposal. How they also have to implement the new measures for pollution control.
Yeah.
That also helps. But yeah, it's also true. Like when I first came to China, like 3 years ago already, I could still see some days of like really heavy smog.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially in winter, because more coal is burned in the city. And now you see nothing of it. Like 90% of the days, the air quality here is better than in my hometown in Madrid.
Yeah, this is snow, not smog.
Yeah. No, nothing weird happening here. But I like to. My first take on this episode is gonna be like how at the beginning of the funding of the People's Republic of China, you have many of the propaganda that was made by the masses that revolve around the idea. I have to see if I can find some of these like big posters, like really in a early Soviet style.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. But the main message they give is like, we are transforming nature. And that was a kind of optimism of how the ideas that they have, not only for the country as a political entity, but also as the country as a environment on its own, as a part of nature, and how they aim to just make it better for everyone.
Yeah,
that I really love. And it really, the idea or the planning really did change throughout the years. You have many problems, you have many dark ages that really no one is happy to talk about, but still you can see how in the end the optimism still perseveres, and I'm just hopeful that this idea will carry over. We have to talk about how China has helped massively into making the whole country more green, reforestation of many places. Beijing, when the People's Republic of China was founded, Beijing was a desert, and now it's one of the most green cities in the world. And this also applies to, again, most of the developmental perspectives that people carry over.
So we've done 5,000 years of Chinese history.
5,000 years. You say quite fast, but it's
5,000 years of Chinese history in 4 hours, and every one of those years has 365 days, and those days are pretty wild.
How many minutes?
Those are the days
of being wild. See you next time, guys.